Okay, imagine this. There's this jewelry store, right? And they've got these turquoise pieces just sitting there. Nobody's buying them.
Ah,
So the owner, totally frustrated, leaves a note for the staff, accidentally tells them to double the price, not have it,
oh wow.
and boom, they sell out. Completely. Gone.
That's wild. It really shows something, doesn't it?
It does. Or think about that famous study, the Xerox machine one. We're just adding the word because,
Yeah.
even with a totally silly reason.
Right, like, because I have to make copies.
Exactly. It made people way more likely to let someone cut in line. What is going on there?
It's fascinating, truly, how these subtle, almost invisible cues just shape how we react, often completely under the radar.
Absolutely. And that's what this deep dive is all about. We're going to unpack these unseen forces that influence our choices every single day.
Yeah, we're digging into some really foundational work here. Stuff that reveals how we all use and, let's be honest, fall victim to these specific weapons of influence, these shortcuts.
Right. So our mission really is to pull out the key nuggets here to help you understand these powerful principles. Hopefully you'll feel a bit more, well-informed, maybe more resilient with all the attempts to sway us out there.
Definitely. Forewarned is forearmed, as they say.
Okay, so let's jump in. First big idea, these built-in shortcuts. You know that feeling, right? Where your brain just seems to click on to autopilot.
Mm-hmm. Responding to some simple cue.
Yeah. The core idea basically is like, you know how lower animals have these fixed action patterns, like a mother turkey?
Oh, the cheap, cheap sound.
Exactly. That sound triggers her mothering instinct, even if it's coming from a stuffed polecat, apparently.
Oh.
Well, the idea is humans have similar pre-programmed tapes.
They help us be efficient, mostly.
Yeah.
But people who know about them can use these trigger features to activate our tapes at, well, times they shouldn't.
Right. Exploit them.
And it's precisely these common automatic reactions that make us vulnerable to influence. The real trick is spotting when these useful shortcuts are being kind of weaponized against us.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we defend ourselves without just analyzing everything?
It's tough, but knowing how they work is the first step.
Okay, so like that Xerox study you mentioned, Langer's study. If you just asked, can I cut in? Maybe 60% said yes.
Right, standard request.
But add, because I'm in a rush, compliance jumps way up to like 93%.
Makes sense. You gave a reason.
But here's the kicker. If you said, excuse me, I have 5 pages, may I use the Xerox machine because I have to make some copies?
Which is not really a reason at all.
Exactly. It's a non-reason. But compliance, still 93%.
Wow. So the word because itself was the trigger. Click, whirr.
Just like the cheap, it wasn't the logic of the reason, just the presence of the word triggering that, okay, I'll comply tape.
It really highlights how our brains default to efficiency. We don't always engage in deep processing. And that shortcut, simple as the word because, can be hijacked.
And the turquoise jewelry, that fits right in.
Absolutely. Those customers, likely well-off vacationers who didn't know much about turquoise, they were just using a standard mental shortcut. Expensive equals good. It's a stereotype, but often useful.
So when the price accidentally doubled,
Suddenly, the jewelry seemed much more valuable, much more desirable. Price itself became the trigger for quality. Click, whirr, again.
crazy. But it makes sense why we have these shortcuts.
Oh, definitely. We need them.
Oh.
Life's too complex otherwise. We'd be, as the source material puts it, frozen cataloging, appraising, and calibrating constantly.
Unable to function.
Exactly. But that reliance creates vulnerabilities. And honestly, with this sheer amount of information hitting us daily, we're probably relying on them more and more.
Which makes understanding them even more crucial. Okay, so moving on from those automatic triggers, let's talk about something really fundamental to society. Reciprocation.
Ah, yes. The old give and take.
You scratch my back, I scratch yours. It's this deep-seated rule. We should try to repay, in kind, what someone else gives us.
It's a powerful social glue, really. Societies depends on it. And we have labels for people who don't play by the rule, right?
Oh, yeah. Moocher, ingrate, freeloader. Nobody wants to be called that.
And this rule has, well, awesome strength, as the book says.
Yeah.
It can make us say yes to requests we'd normally refuse just because we feel embedded.
Like the Hare Krishna example.
Exactly. They used to give people flowers on the street totally uninvited.
Right, I remember that.
That small, unsolicited gift dramatically increased donations, even from people who might not have liked them otherwise. The feeling of obligation overpowered potential dislike.
And what's really interesting is it works even if we didn't ask for the favor in the first place.
That's key. The unsolicited gift still creates an obligation.
Like that professor who sent Christmas cards to total strangers.
Yeah, and got loads back from people he'd never met. They just automatically reciprocated.
Or that study with Joe and the Cokes.
Oh, right. If Joe bought the participant a Coke beforehand, a small unexpected favor, they bought twice as many raffle tickets from him later.
Compared to if he didn't buy them a Coke.
Precisely. Even organizations use this. The Disabled American Veterans found sending out those unsolicited address labels nearly doubled their donation rate.
Wow. Okay, so this powerful drive leads to a specific tactic. The rejection, then retreat.
Or the door-in-the-face technique.
Yeah.
Sounds aggressive, but it's subtle.
Yeah, it probably sounds familiar, like maybe a Boy Scout comes to your door.
Yes. Would you like to buy this $5 candy bar? No thanks. Okay, well, how about this $1 chocolate bar then?
Exactly. You make a big request first, one that's likely to be rejected.
Then you retreat to a smaller, more reasonable request, the one you actually wanted all along.
And the other person feels like they've won a concession, so they're more likely to agree to the smaller one.
It leverages not just reciprocation, they made a concession, I should too, but also the contrast principle. The second request seems smaller by comparison.
There's a really striking example of this, isn't there, from Watergate?
Oh, yeah. G. Gordon Liddy's initial plan for the bugging operation presented to John Mitchell was apparently outrageous. $1 million.
$1 million. Okay.
Mitchell rejected it, obviously.
Yeah.
Then Liddy came back with a $500,000 plan. Still rejected.
Still too much.
Finally, he presented the bare bones $250,000 plan. And Mitchell approved that one.
Even though it was still, wildly illegal and risky.
Right. But Mitchell likely felt he'd successfully negotiated Liddy down. He felt partly responsible for shaping the final, more reasonable proposal. He conceded to Liddy's concession.
So how do you deal with this when someone tries the door in the face?
Well, the key is recognition. If you realize someone's made an extreme request just so they can retreat to their real goal...
You don't have to play along.
Exactly. You can just accept the initial favor or concession for what it is, a tactic. The rule says repay favors, not tricks.
So if that fire inspector gives a free inspection, then immediately tries to sell you an expensive alarm system.
You redefine the inspection. It wasn't a gift. It was a sales device. And you're free to just say no without feeling obligated by the free part.
Makes sense. Okay, so from that social pressure, let's shift inward to consistency.
The hobgoblin of little minds, as Emerson put it. Or at least foolish consistency.
Right. We have this incredibly strong, almost subconscious drive to be, and importantly, to appear consistent with things we've already done or said.
It offers a kind of mental shortcut, too. The comfort of mindless consistency. Once we've made a decision, we don't have to think so hard anymore. We just stick with it.
But that can lead us down some strange paths, right? Like the example of Sarah and Tim.
Oh, yeah. That's a powerful, if slightly sad, illustration. Sarah chooses Tim over another guy, based on promises he made.
Promises to change, get married.
Right. And even when he doesn't follow through, Sarah becomes more devoted, more convinced she made the right choice. Why?
Because admitting she was wrong would be inconsistent with her major life decision.
Exactly. She convinces herself, builds new justifications to maintain that consistency, even when the original reasons are gone.
It's kind of scary how we can fool ourselves like that, and even toy companies leverage this.
Oh, that's a clever, if maybe cynical tactic. Before Christmas, heavy ads for a specific desirable toy.
Kids see it, badger parents. Please.
Parents, wanting to make their kids happy, eventually promise, okay, Santa will bring it.
But then...
The companies deliberately undersupply that exact toy before Christmas. Stores don't have it.
So parents have to buy substitute gifts.
Yep. But then, after Christmas, the ads for that original promised toy reappear.
And the kids pipe up, hey, you promised.
And the parents, driven by the need to be consistent with their promise, trudge back to the store and buy the toy they couldn't find earlier, doubling the company's sales for that item.
Wow, so the key really is getting that initial commitment once that stand is taken.
There's that powerful internal pressure to behave consistently with it.
And making that commitment public makes it even stronger, doesn't it?
It's hugely stronger. Think about the Korean War POWs.
The Chinese captors. They didn't use much overt torture, right?
Not primarily. They used psychological pressure. They'd get prisoners to make very small anti-American or pro-communist statements, maybe in writing, seemingly insignificant things.
Like the United States is not perfect.
Exactly. But then they'd make those statements public, read them aloud, post them in the camp.
So now the prisoner's statement is out there.
And to remain consistent with what he's written and what others now know he's written, his self-image starts to shift. He might start seeing himself as a collaborator, which makes him more likely to actually collaborate on bigger things later.
That's insidious, but it explains why, say, weight loss clinics ask you to write down your goal.
And show it to friends and family. Making it public locks you in.
Or that woman who quit smoking by telling everyone she knew. The fear of looking inconsistent kept her on track.
It's a powerful motivator. And effort plays a role, too. The harder it is to get into something.
The more committed you feel to it afterward.
Precisely. Think about intense initiation rites, fraternity hazing, brutal military boot camps.
Tribal ceremonies.
Right. The Force calls the harshness of military training infernal, but notes it's intended to build intense pride and camaraderie among those who survive it. Enduring hardship together forges a powerful, consistent bond with the group.
But there's a catch here, right? It works best if we feel we chose it.
Yes, that's crucial. Inner responsibility. Commitments stick when we feel we made them freely, without strong external pressure like big rewards or threats.
Like in Friedman's robot study, with the kids.
Exactly. Some kids were given a strong threat not to play with a cool robot toy. Don't play with it, or I'll be very angry and have to do something about it.
Okay, clear threat.
Others got a mild reason. It's wrong to play with a robot. Later, when left alone, the kids who got the strong threat played with the robot much more readily once the threat was gone.
But the ones given the mild reason.
They mostly avoided it. They'd internalized the reason. They felt they'd chosen not to play with it because it was wrong, not because they were forced. They took personal responsibility.
So for parenting, gentle reasoning about why something is right or wrong
Can lead to lasting internalized values, more so than just threats or bribes, which only control behavior when the pressure is on.
Okay, and how does this play out in sales? The lowball tactic.
Ugh. Ah, the lowball. Classic consistency trap. A salesperson offers you a great deal, maybe an amazing price on a car.
Gets you hooked.
Gets you to make the decision. Yes, I want this car at this price. You start filling out forms, maybe take a test drive, mentally commit,
You're invested.
and then, oops, an error is discovered. Maybe the salesman forgot to add the cost of the air conditioning, or the manager won't approve the discount. The original great price advantage is removed.
So the initial reason for your choice is gone.
Right. But because you've already committed, filled out forms, pictured yourself driving it, you start generating new reasons to justify the now higher price. Oh, well, it's still a good color, or I've already spent all this time. You stick with the commitment.
Sneaky. So how do we fight this? We need consistency, but not foolish consistency.
Right. Emerson's point. The advice is often to listen to your gut. That uncomfortable feeling in your stomach when you suspect you're being pushed into something you wouldn't normally agree to, just to stay consistent.
Trust that feeling.
Yeah. Use it as a signal. Ask yourself, knowing what I know now, would I make this same commitment again?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, maybe it's time to walk away.
And sometimes, maybe just calling it out, I know what you're doing here with this low ball.
Huh. Yeah, that can sometimes throw them off script entirely. Worth a try.
Okay. Powerful stuff. That's consistency drive. Now, what about when we look outwards to other people? Social proof.
Right. The power of the crowd. We figure out what's correct by finding out what other people think is correct.
It's another shortcut. If lots of people are doing something, it's probably the right thing to do. Less thinking for us.
Exactly. You see the long line for a restaurant and you assume it's good.
Even if they're just creating an artificial line outside.
Happens all the time. Or think about canned laughter on TV shows.
Ugh. Yeah. Most people say they hate it.
But TV execs use it because experiments show it works. It makes audiences laugh longer and rate the material as funnier, even if they consciously dislike the laugh track. They're responding to the social cue of others laughing.
Or Billy Graham crusades using ringers to start the walk to the altar.
Yes, staging that initial mass outpouring triggered genuine responses from the crowd. Same with charity telethons, constantly listing donors' names.
Look at all these other people giving. You should too.
Precisely. It normalizes the behavior.
So when is this principle strongest? When are we most likely to follow the herd?
Two key conditions stand out: uncertainty and similarity.
Okay, uncertainty first. Makes sense. If we don't know what to do.
We look to others for clues. The classic tragic example is the Kitty Genovese murder.
Where dozens of people apparently witnessed her being attacked over a long period, but nobody called the police.
Right. It baffled people. Why didn't anyone help? Research afterwards pointed strongly to pluralistic ignorance.
Meaning?
Everyone saw other people watching, assumed someone else must have already called the police, or maybe decided it wasn't really an emergency since nobody else was acting alarmed. Responsibility diffused across the crowd.
So safety in numbers can actually be dangerous for the victim.
It absolutely can be. Which leads to really important advice if you're ever in an emergency and need help from a crowd.
Don't just yell, "Help!"
No. Reduce their uncertainty. Single someone out. Point directly. You, sir, in the blue jacket, call 911.
Make it specific. Assign responsibility.
Exactly. It breaks through the pluralistic ignorance. Naming one person makes them responsible and often spurs others to help too, now that the correct action is clear.
Okay, that's vital. What about the second condition, similarity?
We're more influenced by people we see as being like us.
Hence the man on the street, testimonials and ads. Not celebrities, just average Joes.
Yep. Or studies showing people are more likely to return a lost wallet if the letter inside suggests the previous person who found it and virtuously returned it was similar to them.
And kids learning things from other kids.
Perfect example. A child who's afraid of dogs might be more influenced by seeing another child happily playing with one than by just watching an adult do it. Tommy learning to swim because his peer Chris could do it. Similarity boosts social proof.
But social proof has a dark side too, doesn't it? The Werther effect.
Yes, that refers to the finding that after a suicide is highly publicized in the media.
Like Goethe's novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther, sparking copycat suicides back then.
Exactly. Statistics show measurable spikes in suicides, but also in fatal accidents, car crashes, private plane crashes, in the geographical areas where the suicide story was circulated.
Suggesting that some of those accidents might actually be covert suicides, influenced by the publicized one.
The evidence points that way. It's not just general societal stress. It seems to be a direct copycat effect, triggered by the story, especially among people similar to the person in the story.
And the most extreme example, Jonestown.
Jonestown is, well, it's a horrifying confluence of several principles, but social proof under conditions of extreme uncertainty was massive.
Jim Jones moved his followers to a remote jungle in Guyana. Totally unfamiliar environment.
Completely isolated, strange customs, surrounded by people unlike them. Massive uncertainty. In that situation, who do you look to for guidance?
Each other and the leader, Jim Jones.
Exactly. They increasingly relied on the group's cues and Jones's directives, leading to what the source calls that mindless compliance, even to the point of mass suicide. Uncertainty and similarity within the group created a powerful, deadly bubble of social proof.
Chilling. So how do we push back against faulty social proof?
Well, first, be aware of obviously faked social proof. Canned laughter, bartenders putting their own money in the tip jar.
Fake lines outside clubs.
Right. Recognize it as manipulation and actively resist it. Maybe even call it out, like you suggested with the lowball. Second, realize that the crowd isn't always right.
They might just be reacting to social proof themselves, not actual knowledge.
Precisely. Like those stories of buffaloes stampeding off cliffs, following the ones in front, or drivers all merging into one lane because the first few cars did, even if there's no actual obstacle. Look up, look around, engage your own brain before just following.
Good advice. Okay, moving from the crowd to individuals. The principle of liking.
Ah, yes. Seems obvious, but it's powerful. We're simply more likely to say yes to people we know and like.
Makes sense. But what makes us like someone, especially someone trying to influence us?
Several factors. Physical attractiveness is a big one, unfortunately.
The halo effect. We assume good-looking people are also smarter, kinder, more honest.
Research backs that up. They get more help, are seen as more persuasive, even get lighter sentences in court sometimes. Attractive kids' misbehavior is often seen as less naughty. It's an automatic bias.
Okay. What else?
Similarity. We like people who are like us. Shared opinions, personality traits, background, even similar names or clothes.
Salespeople are trained for this, right? To find common ground, mirror your posture.
Absolutely. Mirror and match. It builds rapport, subconsciously increases liking, and thus compliance.
Cooperation is another factor.
Yes, working together towards common goals breeds liking. The jigsaw classroom method, where kids had to rely on each other to learn material.
It reduced racial prejudice because they had to cooperate.
Exactly. And the famous Robbers Cave experiment. 2 groups of boys at camp made into bitter rivals through competition.
How did they fix it?
Only by forcing them to cooperate on tasks that required mutual effort. Fixing the water supply, pooling money to rent a movie, working together dissolved the hostility and created friendships.
Which explains the effectiveness of the good cop, bad cop routine, too.
Definitely. The bad cop creates the threat, the conflict. Then the good cop steps in, seems to be on your side, maybe offers you a coffee, speaks reasonably.
Seems cooperative against the bad cop?
Right. Creates a sense of liking and trust for the good cop, making you more likely to confide in him. It's manufactured cooperation.
Clever. And uncomfortable. What about just association?
Ah, yes. We like things and people associated with positive things and dislike things associated with negative ones.
Like celebrity endorsements. The positive feelings about the celebrity transfer to the product.
That's the idea. Or politicians surrounding themselves with popular figures. It's all about association.
In the negative side, like blaming the weatherman for bad weather.
Yes. Poor weatherman. It's an irrational association, but it happens. Or that old saying, don't shoot the messenger. We tend to dislike people who bring bad news.
And this connects to sports fans too, right? Burgeoning.
Basking in reflected glory. Yes. Fans feel a personal connection to their team's success. Notice the pronouns.
After a win, it's we won.
But after a loss, often it's they lost.
We want to associate with winners, distance ourselves from losers. We manage the visibility of our connections.
Exactly. We wear the team jersey more after a win. We want everyone to see our connection to success.
So how do we protect ourselves from being unduly influenced by liking?
The key is to notice when you feel yourself liking the salesperson, the requester, more than you'd expect under the circumstances, especially if it happens quickly.
That feeling of, wow, I really like this person, even though I just met them.
Right. That should be a red flag. Not that liking is bad, but undue liking might be a tactic. At that point, mentally separate the person from the request or the deal. Make the decision based on the merits of the offer itself, not just because you like the person selling it.
Separate the dealer from the deal. Good heuristic. Okay, next up, authority.
A big one. We are trained from birth to obey legitimate authorities. Parents, teachers, police.
It's usually adaptive, right? They often have more knowledge or power. Following their directives is generally sensible.
It is, but it creates a deep-seated, often automatic, deference to authority figures, or even just the symbols of authority.
Which can be dangerous when exploited. The Milgram experiments are the starkest example, aren't they?
Truly chilling. Ordinary people, recruited for a learning study, were willing to administer what they thought were increasingly painful, potentially dangerous electric shocks to another person.
Just because a guy in a lab coat told them to continue? The experimenter?
Yes. Showing, as Milgram put it, the extreme willingness of adults to go to almost any lengths on the command of an authority. When the command came from another participant, a peer compliance plummeted. Virtually everyone refused.
It wasn't about sadism, it was about obedience to authority.
Overwhelmingly, yes. And the scary part is how easily authority can be faked or implied through symbols.
Like titles.
Titles work wonders. Introduce someone as professor, and people listen more attentively, perceive them as taller even. There were documented cases of hospital nurses almost administering dangerous overdoses or incorrect medications.
Because an unknown person on the phone, identifying himself as a doctor, ordered it. They obeyed the title, not the person or common sense.
Exactly. Clothes are another powerful symbol.
The business suit effect.
Right. One study had a man jaywalk. When he wore a business suit, 3.5 times more people followed him into the street against the light than when he wore work clothes.
Just the suit conveyed authority.
It did. And uniforms, of course, are incredibly powerful. Think of security guard uniforms, or even fake uniforms used in scams.
Like the bank examiner scam, where con artists dress up like officials.
Yes, convincing people to withdraw savings to help catch a dishonest teller. The uniform triggers automatic compliance. Even trappings like expensive cars or fancy jewelry can imply status and authority, making people more deferential.
So faced with an authority figure telling us to do something, how do we resist inappropriate influence?
2 key questions to ask yourself. First, is this authority truly an expert in this situation? Are their credentials relevant?
Don't just trust the title of the suit. Check the substance.
Right. Second question, how trustworthy is this expert likely to be here? What might they gain from my compliance?
Look for potential motives.
Yes. Ironically, one way compliance pros build trustworthiness is by appearing to argue slightly against their own interests.
Like the waiter who says, oh, the veal isn't the best tonight. Maybe try the chicken instead. It's a bit cheaper, but excellent.
Exactly. That small act of seeming honesty builds massive credibility. Now you trust his recommendation for the expensive wine.
Or advertisers who mention a minor drawback. Listerine, the taste you hate 3 times a day, before pushing the benefits.
It makes them seem more honest, so you believe the main claims more readily. Be aware of that tactic, too.
Okay, good points. Finally, the last principle, scarcity.
The power of last chance, or limited time only.
We seem to want things more when we think we can't have them.
Absolutely. Opportunities seem more valuable when their availability is limited or seems to be decreasing. It plays on our shortcut heuristic that things hard to get are usually better than things easy to get.
So tactics like limited number,
Only 5 left at this price, yeah. Or the deadline tactic.
sale ends Tuesday, offer expires soon.
Right. Even things like photographers saying they have to burn unsold pictures of your children within 24 hours due to limited storage. It creates urgency through scarcity.
That Mormon temple example was interesting too.
Yeah, a newly refurbished temple, usually off limits to non-members, was open for public tours for just a few days.
And people flocked to see it.
Immense interest, largely driven by the limited time access. Scarcity made the opportunity seem incredibly valuable.
And this connects to psychological reactance.
Yes, that's our tendency to react against threats to our freedoms. When something we could have is made unavailable, or our ability to choose is restricted, we want it more.
To preserve our sense of autonomy.
Exactly. Think of the Romeo and Juliet effect. Parental opposition to a teenage romance often intensifies the couple's feelings and commitment.
Trying to restrict their freedom makes them desire it more.
Right. Same with censorship. Tell people they can't have certain information and they want it more and find it more persuasive.
Like juries told to disregard evidence about insurance.
They often end up giving more weight to that forbidden information, awarding higher damages. And telling buyers about an exclusive, scarce supply of beef made them buy more Bash J. The scarcity of the information itself made the beef seem more desirable.
So scarcity is powerful. Are there times when it's even more powerful?
2 conditions seem to amplify it: new scarcity and competition.
New scarcity, meaning something that just became scarce is more desirable than something that was always scarce.
Research suggests so, like the cookie study. People rated cookies as more desirable when they were taken from a jar containing only 2 cookies, compared to an identical cookie taken from a jar with 10.
Okay, simple scarcity.
But they rated the cookies as even more desirable if they first saw a jar with 10 cookies that was then replaced by a jar with only 2. The reason scarcity made them value the cookies most.
Interesting. That has implications for things like inconsistent parenting.
Could well do. If a parent sometimes allows sweets and sometimes forbids them, the child experiences the sweets as a freedom that is now being lost. That newly scarce freedom might make the child want the sweets even more and react more strongly against the prohibition.
Fascinating. And the other condition, competition.
Oh yeah, we want something scarce even more if we feel we're competing with others for it.
Auctions, bidding wars.
It's exactly. Or the savvy real estate agent scheduling multiple potential buyers to see a house at the same time.
Creates social proof and scarcity through competition.
Double whammy. Makes buyers feel urgent, like they need to make an offer quickly before someone else snaps it up.
Okay, scarcity is potent. How do we say no effectively? It feels like it triggers a strong emotional reaction.
It does. That rush of arousal when something is scarce is the first thing to notice. Use that feeling itself as a cue to stop. Calm down. Take a breath.
Don't get caught up in the frenzy.
Right. Then ask yourself a crucial question. Why do I want this thing?
Is it just because it's rare or because I actually need its function?
Exactly. If you want it primarily for the pride of possession, its rarity, then okay, its scarcity is relevant to how much you might pay. But if you want it for its use to eat it, drink it, drive it, read it.
Then remember, its function doesn't change whether it's scarce or abundant.
Precisely. As the source reminds us, the scarce cookies didn't taste any better. Separate the emotional rush of scarcity from the actual utility of the item.
Great advice. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We really have. These 7 principles, click whirr, automaticity, reciprocation, consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity, they're incredibly pervasive.
And it's important to remember they're not inherently bad, are they? They're mental shortcuts, usually helpful for navigating a complex world efficiently.
Absolutely. They streamline decision-making. The issue arises when they're exploited, when our automatic tapes are triggered inappropriately for someone else's gain.
So understanding them isn't about becoming cynical or distrustful of everyone.
Not at all. It's about becoming more aware, more discerning. It's a shortcut, in a way, to being better informed about how influence works, so you can navigate ads, requests, social situations with your eyes open.
Achieving, as the source puts it, primitive consent for an automatic age. Making conscious choices even when our automatic buttons are being pushed.
Well put. Allowing yourself to use the shortcuts when appropriate, but recognizing and resisting when they're being used on you.
So, a final thought for everyone listening. The next time you feel that strong pull to buy something immediately, to agree to a request that feels a bit off, to just go along with the crowd, pause for a second. Ask yourself, is this my brain working efficiently on my behalf? Or is this just a click, whirr response being triggered by someone else's design? Armed with this knowledge now, what decision will you make?